What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Planet Soccer Podcast. Dylan, we good? Audio good? Video good?
Yeah, we look
After our technical
better than we
difficulties, we've
did before. Yeah,
good. All right. So
better than DCFC looked in the second half today.
and better than your sobriety level right now.
Possibly.
We'll see. We'll see as the episode goes on how this goes for you. Dylan's had his date night tonight and then is maybe a couple bottles deep in wine, honestly.
Got a little
today we were talking
seltzer. We're good.
Oh, there you go. He's sobering up. Today we're talking Usmnt, another coaching candidates. Dylan, this one is just kind of our default MLS candidate.
Yeah,
and
I feel like
to be fair to Jim, to be fair to Jim, he's a good coach. He's a good MLS coach. Jesse Marsch was a good MLS coach at one point, so he might end up in Europe. He might end up coaching a big team one day, but for now, he is just the coach of the Philadelphia Union, the very good Philadelphia Union. However, just the Philadelphia Union. I feel like I was going to say something else in the intro, but I forgot. So I'm just going to let you go ahead and lead into Jim. Now.
So we're going to do this. We're going to do this real similar to how we did the last two. Have we only done two? It feels like we've done more, but I think it's only the last two, maybe three. But I'm just going to kind of dive into who he is, what he's done thus far, and then we'll go into why it might work, why it might not work. So far, though, he, as you said, the long time, like when I'm talking long time in MLS coaching, it is a long time. I think
we're on like 9 years on 9 years for the Union.
He's going on 9 years at the Union. But before that, he did play U.S. college soccer, which I do get the appeal there. If you're trying to build a whole system, you want somebody who has come up through the system and has played soccer on the U.S. level his whole life. He was a defender at Villanova, 2-time All Big East for whatever the heck that's worth as a coach. And he played for
I think the Big East is pretty good at soccer.
Now it is, but when he was there, it was Villanova. It was not really worth a whole heck of a lot when he was there. He played at Chicago Fire. He played at Chivas. And then from there, he went to the Philadelphia Union. As we said, he was an academy coach there, which he, in his defense, had some success at. And then he went on to be the assistant coach at the Union. And then, as we said, has been the head coach of the Union since 2014, I believe. So we're looking at, roughly nine-ish years now, 8.5 years, whatever you want to call it, based on the MLS schedule. We're both European football followers, so I'm not as good. You're probably not as good with the MLS schedule and what those years mean. But he's been at the Union for 9-ish years. He in one of his accolades, if you will, he has been the coach / developmental coach of the Aronson brothers and Trusty, who is now an Arsenal player who is on loan at Birmingham. He's been the 2-time coach of the year in the MLS. However, as we'll kind of dive into the why he might not work, he's won one trophy at the Philadelphia Union in 9 years, and it was, if you will, the community shield for you EPL fans. He has one single trophy, but he did take the Union from a bottom of the MLS side to runners up this last year. He's probably the most acclaimed coach at this point in time that has been in the MLS for his whole career. So he does have some high remarks on his resume as far as MLS goes, but we can kind of dive in now. I will preface all of this. It's probably going to be our shortest USMNT possible coach episode because, as I said, we're both EPL guys. We're both European guys, so we don't follow the MLS as well. And bash us in the comments if you will. I
For
know there
Euro
are a lot
snobs.
of MLS, USMNT fans that say you have to support the MLS if you're a true USMNT fan. We aren't those guys, though. So we're just going to kind of dive into
FC
why he
Dallas
may
season
work.
ticket holder, though. FC Dallas season ticket holder.
Oh, season ticket holder. All right. So, yeah, I say not U.S. based fan. I am a DCFC supporter.
I've been to one game.
One game. I've been to more DCFC games non MLS side than you have been to FC Dallas games. But we'll kind of jump in pretty probably, as I said, briefly to why he might work, and then we'll jump into why he won't work. So, Reed, tell me. I have my reasons why he might work, but I'll let you kind of kick us off here. Why he might work as the USMNT coach.
So I think, well, like you mentioned, his relationship to the soccer system in America, whether that be college or MLS or even MLS Academy, I think it lends really well to building the U.S. system as a whole, kind of what we said with Marsh. And then also I think tactically, it's MLS tactics, but I think tactically he sets up relatively well. He plays kind of with a 4-4-2 diamond, but it's more of a like 4-3-2-1. I'm sorry, 4-3-1-2 with either the left winger or right winger. In this case, either Pulisic or Timothy Weah, who are both completely capable of coming inside to support Balogun or whoever that might be. But fingers crossed. It's also a vertical tiki-taka system in many ways, or he's tried to make it that way. I don't know if we have the midfield right now to play through the middle like that in that vertical tiki-taka style. However, I do like the way that he sets up.
So we certainly have the midfield to play that way in CONCACAF and in qualifying and in all of the things leading up to the World Cup.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But at this point in time, like, do I care about the Gold Cup? 6 years ago, like, sign me up if it was something that could win CONCACAF qualifying or win the Gold Cup or win, more small potatoes, if you will, trophies. But
yeah,
is he the guy that will carry us further is kind of his biggest question. One of the things I do love about him, me personally, is his commitment to the U.S. side at this point in time. And I'll get into why this may be a downfall, but he is so committed to the U.S. side at this point that he's willing to be an assistant. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. But
he's basically saying he wants the job.
From a positive side, like, he wants nothing more than to represent the U.S. men's national team at some level. And there is something to be said. And if I were interviewing somebody for this job, I would want somebody that is that fully committed to this federation and this project, if you will. Yes, it's our golden generation, but if we're being realistic, it is still a project. I'm excited about
all international programs
excited.
Besides a few are always projects in many ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, he's flat. One of my favorite quotes from doing the research for this episode is he's flat out said, if they choose Jose Mourinho, if they choose Ancelotti, if they choose Jesse Marsh, I don't care. I want to be their assistant. And is that something I again,
Thierry
as
Henry.
I said, this is, or Thierry Henry, if we had our say, I'm sure he would feel the same way. It wasn't somebody he mentioned in that quote, but that is a guy that truly believes in the U.S. project, and that is a positive. Now we'll get into why more quotes from that interview kind of lead me to lean on the side of, if he is our guy, it is overly safe, it is overly not exciting, but it is a guy that is fully ready to commit all of himself to the U.S. men's national team side. And if we have to fully back this guy, that is something I like. That's something I'm excited about. Because if you look at Mourinho, who is another guy we have / will touch on, if we're talking about Henry, like, those are guys that are like, I just want a chance to manage a international side. But when you look at Curtin, it is a guy who is fully willing and ready to give himself to the project, if you will, of the U.S. men's national team, and that is exciting. Like, whether he feels fully ready or not, it is exciting that he wants to help be a part of taking this golden generation that we've talked about time and time again to the next level. And that's something that I am very excited about. Probably not my first choice, not my second choice, not my third choice. But if we are going the USMNT route where we settle, which seems like that's all we ever do is settle. If we have to settle on a guy, it's settling on a guy that will fully commit himself to the side, and that is one of the positives, if you will, that I'll give this guy.
Would you rather have Berhalter or Curtin in?
Can I have Berhalter with Curtin as an assistant?
No. One or the other.
Do I get Gio Reyna with Curtin but not with Berhalter? Like that sound like this sounds wild. Well, maybe it doesn't even sound that wild, but I'm ready to let the Reynas, as much as I think they are the villains in that situation that we've talked about time and time again on the show and has been talked about ad nauseum in the USMNT world, I'm willing to give that family a little bit of power. So if they are more comfortable with Curtin, I'm more comfortable with Curtin because I want Gio Reyna in my midfield. I don't want Gio Reyna only playing.
You want him happy.
15 minutes a game in the next World Cup. Yeah. And I hate like planning my next coach around a single player. But I was willing to do it with Henry. That was one of my perks for Henry is if he brings in Balogun, I'm all in on Henry. So I have to give it to Curtin then. Like, if he can keep Gio and Gio's family happy, like we've seen what Gio's done at Dortmund. So if it is one or the other, if it's Gio or Berhalter or Gio and Curtin or Berhalter, I'm taking Gio and Curtin for sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about let's talk a little bit about why, or maybe a little bit more about why maybe we wouldn't want Curtin to get the job other than he just feels like the safe pick. Really, to me, it comes down to his just complete lack of knowledge of the top teams, basically of Europe, essentially. The top players he would be facing, the top, even his top players are predominantly European players. And I just don't know if he can command. I don't know if commanding the locker room would necessarily be the word, maybe so, but earn the respect of the locker room in a.
He flat out doesn't excite the likes of Pulisic. He doesn't. While the Reynas might be willing to have him be the manager, he doesn't excite the Reynas. He doesn't incite excitement for Balogun or Weah or any of those guys that we want to take us to the next level on the field.
Yeah.
He doesn't elicit excitement in those guys, and that is my second biggest concern. My first and biggest concern, and why this will probably be our shortest managerial episode, is he's flat out said he's not sure if he's ready to handle this. In that same interview I quoted in why he's the right guy, because he wants nothing more than to help this side, and while that is a plus, in that exact same interview, he flat out said, I don't know if I am ready to take on this challenge. And I respect the hell out of him for saying that, for saying it publicly, not even just saying it in an interview, because it's one thing to go into an interview. We've all been in interviews for jobs that we maybe feel like we're underqualified for, and we want to say those things in a private setting. The fact that he said that publicly, like, that is the number one outcry for me. If he does get this job, it's like, why are we hiring a guy that openly has said he doesn't know if he's ready for this position? It's a little scary for me. And the other thing that's scary for me is Alexi Lawless, I think, had him as his number 2 candidate. And we all know how we feel about Alexi Lawless, not only on this podcast,
Berhalter was
but
Alexi Lawless's number 1 candidate also. So
case in point. And again, I don't hate Berhalter as much as most of our listeners, as much as most of the USMNT world. But if Berhalter's your 1, I don't want to hear about your number list. 2. I don't want to hear about your number 2. Like that, plain and simple. The best quality that Curtin has for me is he loves U.S. soccer and he wants to be a part of U.S. soccer. And the next best thing about him is I could have a beer with the guy.
Yeah.
Like I would love to sit down and have a he passes him, like, so
60.
So in the U.S. landscape of politics, which sadly is a lot of what USMNT is based on, he passes that beer test. Yeah. My parents have talked about that beer test for politicians or presidents in the past. Like, yeah, sure, he passes the beer test. I would love to sit down and have a beer with this guy. But like, I think the USMNT side is past the beer test. Like, we need to be taking the next step. I don't care if I would have nothing to talk about with Thierry Henry because he's so far above my knowledge level and above most, not just because we're C+ ball knowledge. Shout out our description, but not just because we're C+ ball knowledge, but like, I think I firmly believe most people in the U.S. office for the U.S. Federation couldn't talk soccer with Mourinho or Henry or maybe even Jesse Marsh. But we want that. That is what has to take us to the next level. So like the beer test is kind of a positive for Curtin, but it's also like almost at the same time a negative. Like, I don't necessarily want a guy that you and I can sit down and chat soccer with. Like, I want somebody that can take us to that next level. And that's where, I know this is a Curtin episode, but like, that's where if we have to find a happy median, which likely we do, because the USMNT, if we're being realistic, isn't going to get Henry. We're not going to get Jose Mourinho. But like, Marsh is like that happy in between where it's like safe for the Federation, but like not overly safe like Curtin is. So like,
if we should also mention, you mentioned Marsh. We appointed a sporting director today, which is something we haven't even mentioned.
We did.
Yeah. So sorry to cut you off, but that head coaching search should be a full go now. And what was the quote you sent me? He said something about
being aggressive and being on the front foot, and like Curtin, not anything against his coaching strategy at Union, but if we want something aggressive, just not even on the pitch, but if we just want something aggressive, the grand scheme of things, Curtin is the least aggressive. So we planned this episode. I did my research before the interview today, so we're still talking about him, partially because it's Alexi Lawless's number frickin' 2 candidate, and
he's our MLS token.
We have to,
essentially. Yeah.
I hesitate to say this because there's a lot of diversity behind it, but like, it feels like that guy in the NFL where you have to hire, or you have to interview, I should say, a diversity candidate. He seems like the guy that like the U.S. Federation will have to interview an MLS guy. He is the MLS guy we're going to interview, and I do,
or for the NFL.
I kind of support it for the U.S. Soccer Federation too. Like I get giving guys that motivation, but he is fully a guy that I think would make a fantastic assistant in the right system. Like, if Curtin is under Jesse Marsh, I love that. I'm all about that. He's proven in the U.S. system. He's proven to find success with U.S. players that might be a little subpar for most of the MLS at times. No offense to the Philadelphia Union players. Don't at us if you're Philadelphia Union fans, but he is kind of that guy right now where I would love to interview him. I would love to have him on our staff, but he's just in over his head if we're truly looking at the best guy to take us into the 2026 World Cup, in my opinion.
Here's what I'll leave our listeners with. I don't know how many this one will get because it's just not. Well, maybe I can make a sexy tagline or whatever it's called. God, what's the word? What do I always title our YouTube videos? What's that called?
Headline?
Clickbait.
Clickbait.
Maybe I can find a good one and we can get a lot of views. But here, I'll leave y'all with this. Jim Curtin, 2030 U.S. men's national team head coach.
Sure. Sign me up.
I think
after Jose.
I think he goes the go the Jesse Marsh route. Get some head coaching experience in Europe. Learn the game in Europe. Maybe go to like a Salzburg or somewhere in like Belgium or something. Make the Champions League as kind of that league winner. Get your feet wet in Europe. And if he still has that American drive, come coach us in 2030. Or if he wants to be an assistant.
Yeah, hot take on that though. Like if he wants to be the assistant and we make a quarterfinal run, I'm not opposed to him as tactically and personality wise being a future manager, but he's not what we need right now. Like this, again, this is our golden generation. I'm not willing to give our golden generation over to a guy who has never seen anything outside of U.S. soccer. And that is probably not what the Federation wants to hear or listen to, but like that's where I'm at.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I think Curtin, in theory, not the best candidate right now. Logically, not the best candidate right now, but keep him kind of in the back of your mind for the future and kind of see what his next step is. I think let's see what his next step is. Maybe it'll be as an assistant. Maybe he'll make the jump over to Europe. He's outgrown the Philadelphia Union, though. He needs to get somewhere else, whether it's a high-profile assistant on the U.S. men's national team or whether it's a head coach in Europe, one of the smaller leagues. Go do it, Jim. Go do it and come back. And we'll talk to you in about a decade. That's been this episode of the Planet Soccer Podcast. Unless Dylan has anything else, 23 minutes is honestly longer than I thought we would go on Jim. But
congrats, Jim! You made it 23 minutes on our episode.
Yeah. Well, almost. We still got 30 seconds, so 22:33 right now. There was kind of good dialogue about where we're at. You know, we talk about it all the time, where we're at with the U.S. men's national team and what kind of coach we're looking for, because we haven't talked about a Jim Curtin type yet. We've talked about the legend of Thierry Henry, the Captain America of Jesse Marsh. So this is kind of a different coaching candidate that was really good to talk about and kind of talk through. So we appreciate you guys listening. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, duet, and stitch. And we'll talk to y'all next time.
You hit them all.